In this unit, we are going to be examining some classroom examples to decide the type and quality of knowledge construction that is evident in the learning activity. Before we begin, let's recap by looking at the decision tree for knowledge construction. As you learned in the previous unit, the decision tree is built around 4 questions, and each question corresponds to a big idea in knowledge construction. So, the first question asks if the activity requires knowledge construction. If not, then the learning activity is coded as a 1. If it does require knowledge construction, then you need to ask, is this knowledge construction the main requirement of the activity? If the answer is no, then the code is 2. If yes, you ask the next question, are students required to apply their knowledge in a new context? If no, then it is a code 3. If yes, you move to the next question, which asks if the learning activity is interdisciplinary. If no, then it's a 4. If it's a yes, then it is a code 5. As outlined earlier, this decision tree can also be represented as a rubric. As you can see, each of the numbers 1 to 5 outline the criteria for the condition for the code. For example, the condition to achieve a code 2 is as follows. The learning activity does require the students to construct knowledge, but the activity's main requirement is not knowledge construction. You can decide which you find easier to use, the decision tree or the rubric, when coding learning activities. We are now going to code a number of anchor lessons. It is important to note that these anchor lessons, which are learning activities, are not sample or model or exemplar lessons. While they are lessons that have been designed and used by teachers, they have been deliberately selected to initiate discussions around learning design and, in this case, different forms of knowledge construction. This is why they are referred to as anchor lessons, as they help anchor our thoughts around knowledge construction. We are not making judgments on these lessons. We are simply looking for evidence of knowledge construction. Remember, these are not scores, but codes, which describe the type of knowledge construction present in the learning activity. To begin, please download the learning activity entitled House on Mango Street. When you've done this, carefully read it. Then, make a decision about the level of knowledge construction that you find in the learning activity. In deciding how to code it, you need to be able to point to evidence in order to justify the code you select. Remember, you are not looking for what you think you might do. Instead, you are looking for evidence to support the code you are giving this learning activity. Having examined the house on Mango Street, please indicate the code you assign this learning activity. We would encourage you to join the discussion area where you can share your views on how you coded this learning activity. What code did you assign the house on Mango Street activity in terms of knowledge construction? What evidence can you point to in order to substantiate your decision? The house on Mango Street learning activity is a code 5. This is because the learning activity's main requirement is knowledge building. The learning activity does require students to apply their knowledge in a new context, and the knowledge building is interdisciplinary. Where did we get the evidence for this? In the house on Mango Street, the students synthesized their knowledge from multiple sources such as novels, online research, and interviews. They analyze general principles about the immigrant experience, then apply them when they write a poem about an element of the immigrant experience for a non-immigrant audience, which requires further analysis. The work is interdisciplinary because it has learning goals in history and language arts. Now please download the learning activity entitled Design a Catapult. When you've done this, carefully read it. Then make a decision about the level of knowledge construction that you find in this learning activity. In deciding how to code it, you need to be able to point to evidence in order to justify this code. Remember, you are not looking for what you think you might do. Instead, you are looking for evidence to support the code you are giving this learning activity. Having examined Design a Catapult, please indicate the code you are going to assign this learning activity. As before, we would encourage you to join the discussion area where you can share your views on how you coded the activity. What code did you assign the Design a Catapult learning activity? What evidence can you point to in order to substantiate your decision? In the Design a Catapult activity, the students are learning about the law of levers. Their lab experiment requires them to complete multiple trials within the same context. They write down findings from each trial and draw conclusions, but they do not apply it to a different context. This evidence indicates that Design a Catapult is a Code 3. This is because the learning activity's main requirement is knowledge construction, but the learning activity does not require students to apply their knowledge in a new context. Finally, please download the learning activity entitled Indigenous Cultures. When you have done this, carefully read it. Then, make a decision about the level of knowledge construction that you find in this learning activity. In deciding how to code it, you need to be able to point to evidence in order to justify the code. Having examined Indigenous cultures, please indicate the code you assigned this learning activity. As before, we would encourage you to join the discussion area where you can share your views on how you coded the activity. What code did you assign Indigenous cultures? What evidence can you point to in order to substantiate your decision? This activity required some knowledge construction on day one when the students used their prior knowledge of the region to decide what to bring with them. However, the main requirement of the activity is to find information on the internet and paraphrase it without any requirement to interpret, analyse, synthesise or evaluate the information they found. The evidence points to a Code 2 for this learning activity. This means that the learning activity does require students to construct knowledge, but the activity's main requirement is not knowledge construction. In this lesson, we have used anchor lessons to score the level of knowledge construction evident in various learning activities. In the next lesson, we will examine a video case study of knowledge construction in action.